2 days before my wedding, I received a text from my fiancé, Carl Newton. Brooke, let's postpone the wedding by a day. I was at a bridal shop trying on my gown, and I stared at the message in confusion. I immediately called him, but instead of Carl, a woman's voice answered. Hi Brooke, Naomi said sweetly. We were playing Truth or Dare with a group of friends, and Carl lost. For the dare, he has to pretend to be my boyfriend for 3 days. I'm sure you understand, right? I calmly hung up and dialed another number. Dad, I said, about the alliance you mentioned last time. I agree, let's change the groom. Brooke, marriage is not something to take lightly, my father replied, concerned. Are you sure about this? If you still feel the same tomorrow morning, I said, I will go through with it your way. When I arrived at the bar, Carl was already drunk, leaning all over Naomi Fuller. People around them were laughing and clapping. Congratulations, Carl. You finally got what you wanted, someone shouted. The moment they noticed me, the room fell silent. Naomi helped Carl stand straight, but he frowned and pulled away. Why did you let go of me, Naomi? You are my girlfriend now, he slurred. Without a word, I picked up a bottle of mineral water, walked over, and poured it right over his head. Are you sober now? I asked. He wiped his face, his eyes cold and devoid of guilt. Brooke Tate, are you crazy? He snapped, once he realized it was me. Carl's tone remained indifferent. There was no apology in his voice, only annoyance. You came just in time, he said flatly. I lost the dare. I have to pretend to date Naomi for 3 days. I already told my assistant to inform all our guests. The wedding is postponed by 1 day. In the past, I would have cried or argued, but this time, I was perfectly calm. All right, I said, 1 day, but in my heart, I had already made the final decision. The groom would no longer be him. I sent my father a message. I've made up my mind. I will not change it again. Good, good, he replied. I always told you Carl was not right for you. I will start making arrangements now. Meanwhile, Carl pulled Naomi close and smirked. See, I told you she would not leave me, he said to the crowd. Brooke, you know this is just pretend. Naomi and I will only act as a couple for 1 day, then we'll go back to normal. We are still going to be married, surely. You can give me that little bit of understanding. His words made my face burn with humiliation. The pain pierced deeper than I had expected. 8 years of love, crushed under the weight of a childish game with his first love. I said nothing more. I turned and walked away. Perhaps it was my silence that startled the onlookers. Carl, someone whispered. Brooke did not say a word. Maybe she really is angry this time. Carl laughed, brushing it off. You all know she has always loved me. We are about to be married. She would never break things off. Just wait, she will come back in a few minutes. But this time, he was wrong. I was done begging for scraps of love. If this was what I meant to him, then I wanted no part of it. I walked away without looking back. When I got home, I pulled out my phone and opened Naomi's social media page. There it was. Lost a game of Truth or Dare to my first love. Now we're back together for 3 days. What should I do? Feeling nervous. Underneath was Carl's pathetic comment. When two people who love each other cannot be together, they should cherish these final moments. I almost threw up. I shut my phone, picked up my wedding dress, and cut it into pieces. I tore up every photo we had ever taken together. Then I gathered all of his things and threw them into the trash. Finally, I called my assistant. Sell the wedding house, I said. Make sure it is gone within 3 days, and just like that. News of Carl's postponed wedding began to spread. Early the next morning, Grandpa Newton arrived at my doorstep with Carl beside him. Brooke, Grandpa Newton said with a solemn tone, this matter is entirely our family's fault. Postponing the wedding is something I do not agree with. Before I could respond, Carl lifted his chin and snapped. Brooke, I knew you would pull something like this behind my back, pretending to agree in person, but then secretly complaining to my grandfather. Let me tell you, just because you talk to him does not mean I will do what you want. This time, I absolutely refused to back down. Grandpa Newton slapped Carl across the face without warning. What nonsense are you spouting? Brooke has not said a single word to our family about any of this. You are completely blinded by that woman, Naomi. Carl held his cheek, his eyes filled with fury as he glared at me. Brooke, I have already made myself clear. I am going to marry you. All I asked was to delay the ceremony by 1 day, just 1 day. Do not think dragging Grandpa into this will make me end things with Naomi. She finally agreed to be my girlfriend for 3 days. I am not giving that up. Grandpa Newton made a move to hit him again, but I gently stepped in front of him and said softly, "Grandpa Newton, please, it is all right." Carl scoffed at me. "Brooke, stop pretending to be the gracious one. Do you really think I will be grateful just because you shielded me from Grandpa? You always try to act righteous and selfless, but I see right through you. You are just trying to gain the upper hand. Do not think for a second that I will give in. If it were not for our engagement, Naomi would never have left the country. We would have been together by now. I just want to fulfill my wish and spend 3 days with her. If you cannot even tolerate that, then you are the one being unreasonable." I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. "Carl," I said firmly, "I am not going to stop you from being with Naomi. Let us call off the engagement." Carl stared at me, stunned. Grandpa Newton turned red with anger. "Carl," he barked, "you apologize to Brooke right now." Carl sneered. Well, I really misjudged you. I never thought you were so calculating, pretending to break off the engagement just to force my hand. Our families have a binding agreement. And you know it cannot be dissolved that easily. You just want to trap me with it, but it will not work. Brooke, I will not let you win." He stormed off, leaving an icy silence behind him. Grandpa Newton looked at me, his face full of sorrow. "Brooke, Carl is just confused right now. I will speak to him when we get back." I shook my head. "Grandpa Newton, I am not joking. I truly want to end this engagement." He looked at me in shock. "Brooke, are you sure?" It was no wonder he was so surprised. Our two families, the Tates and the Newtons, had been close for generations. My grandfather once saved Grandpa Newton's life, and because of that, this engagement had been treated as a bond that should never be broken, as long as I did not ask to end it. The Newton family would never take the initiative to dissolve it. Growing up, I had always followed Carl around. At 15 or 16, when I first fell in love, I clung to him, infatuated. At my 18th birthday party, we got engaged. For 8 years, I chased after him. I obeyed his every word, humbled myself, and tried everything to please him. Everyone in Southbridge knew I was head over heels for him. And yet, here I was, ending the engagement on my own. "Do not worry," I added calmly, "as long as I am still here, Naomi will never be with him. This engagement was arranged by your grandfather. I will not disrespect his wishes." I looked Grandpa Newton in the eye and said slowly, "And besides, Carl is not the only one in your family who can marry me." He blinked, taken aback. Then a flicker of recognition passed through his eyes as he recalled someone else. "Brooke, that would be such a sacrifice for you. He is 8 years older, after all." I shook my head gently. "Grandpa Newton, I have already thought it through. Compared to Carl's reckless immaturity, I believe Joel is a better match for me." Grandpa Newton said nothing more. After a moment of silence, he reached for the phone and dialed Joel Newton's number overseas. When Joel found out he had to return for an arranged engagement, his hands were trembling. He booked the earliest flight home that very night. Although I was the one who took the initiative to end the engagement, I could not deny that my heart felt heavy after hearing about what happened. My best friend invited me out for dinner, hoping to cheer me up, but as luck would have it, we ran into Carl and Naomi at the restaurant. Naomi's voice drifted over from the next table. She said with a soft sigh, "Carl, you may not know this, but if I had not suddenly heard that you were engaged, I would never have gone overseas. You are about to get married, and even though we can only pretend to be a couple for 3 days, I am already content." Carl replied in a low voice, "Naomi, I am the one who wronged you." My chest tightened painfully. My best friend stood up abruptly and pointed at Naomi. She said loudly, "I have never seen anyone as shameless as you. You knew he was about to get married, and yet you still clung to him like that. If you were truly content, you would be offering them your blessing, not trying to tear them apart." Carl immediately turned toward us. With a hard look on his face, he said, "Brooke, can you stop already? I have explained this to you so many times. I am only pretending to be Naomi's boyfriend for 3 days. After that, I will marry you. I promise nothing inappropriate will happen between us. You really do not have to stalk me every single day like this." My best friend looked like she wanted to argue back, but I held her arm and stopped her. I glanced at the two of them calmly and said, "Carl, do not flatter yourself. I am just here to have a quiet meal, that is all." Carl sneered, his eyes narrowing. "Do you think I believe that? Brooke, have you forgotten? When I was chasing Naomi back then, you pulled the same tricks, always finding excuses to show up and stick close to me. And now, here you are again, trying the same old tactics." He stepped forward and protectively placed Naomi behind him. "But this time, you are wrong. I already said I would marry you, but that does not mean I will change my mind." Before I decided to call off the engagement, I had always thought that maybe I was just not good enough, that perhaps that was why Carl could never truly like me. But standing there, watching his ugly display of arrogance, I finally realized how foolish I had been. Love is either there or it is not, no pretending, and this man standing in front of me, he was never worthy of my sincere feelings. I met his gaze with icy calm. "Whether or not you change your mind has nothing to do with me, because I already have." I kept my voice steady but sharp. "Carl, our engagement is over. From now on, you walk your path and I walk mine. I do not care if you and Naomi are pretending to be a couple, or if the two of you run off and get married right this second at City Hall. I will not waste my time stopping you." Naomi stared at me, clearly shocked. Carl frowned deeply, but before he could say more, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, reading a message from his assistant. The hotel reservation details flashed across the screen, and his expression darkened. "Brooke," he snapped, "if you really cancelled the engagement, then why would you still reserve a hotel? Stop making things up." I raised my eyebrows slightly and said coolly, "The engagement is cancelled. What I choose to do now is none of your business." Carl scowled. "Brooke, whatever game you are playing, it will not change my decision. For these 3 days, I will only be Naomi's boyfriend." Naomi immediately seized the moment, putting on her sweetest voice. "Carl, I am really sorry. I did not mean to bring you so much trouble. Maybe we should just stop this. After all, you are supposed to marry Brooke." But Carl, as if under some spell, took her hand tenderly. "Naomi, do not say that. I lost the game, and I will take the consequences. We are a couple for these 3 days. No one can change that." Naomi cast me a deliberately hesitant glance and whispered, "But..." Carl's face turned grim. "These 3 days were not easy to come by. Do not worry about her." Naomi pressed her lips together and said nothing, but I had already reached my limit. I raised my voice and said, "I just wanted to enjoy a quiet meal. Someone get these two out of here. This restaurant does not welcome them." Carl let out a cold laugh. He said, "Brooke, are you out of your mind? This place belongs to the Newton family. Who do you think you are to throw me out?" I looked him straight in the eye and replied, "You seem to have forgotten who gets to decide the heir of the Newton family. Years ago, in gratitude for my grandfather saving his life, Mr. Newton, the old patriarch, made it clear, whoever married me would inherit the majority of the Newton estate. This restaurant was even given to me as an engagement gift when Carl and I were first engaged, so now, I had every right to ask them to leave." Carl obviously knew all this. He looked at me with a sneer and said, "Brooke, you really are disgusting. One moment you are talking about breaking off our engagement, and the next you are clinging to Newton property. You think I do not see through you. You are just using the breakup as leverage." I could not be bothered to argue with either of them. Soon, the restaurant manager arrived and addressed Carl formally. "Mr. Newton, if you would please step out." Carl clearly had not expected me to go this far. His eyes turned sharp with anger. He said, "Brooke, have you completely lost your mind?" I replied calmly, "This place is mine now. I decide who stays and who leaves." Carl jabbed his finger toward my face and shouted, "Brooke, just you wait." I smiled and said, "Do not worry. I promise, I will never be the one with regrets." Carl turned to Naomi and snapped, "This is not the only restaurant in town. Let us go." He grabbed her arm and started to walk away, but I raised my voice again. "Stop right there." Carl turned around with a smug grin and said, "I knew you would stop me, but sorry, it is too late now, unless you apologize to Naomi. Do not even think about me." Looking back, watching him act so full of himself, I suddenly realized how blind I had been in the past to fall for someone like him. I let out a cold laugh and said, "You misunderstood. I stopped you because you forgot to pay for your meal." Carl's face darkened instantly. He growled, "Brooke, I was just about to give you one last chance. You threw it away. Do not come crying later." I responded with a steady voice, "I promise, I will never regret this." "But someone like Mr. Newton surely would not leave without paying, would he?" Carl gritted his teeth and pulled out a fuller credit card. "Fine, charge it," he snapped. A few minutes later, the manager returned looking awkward. He said, "I am very sorry, Mr. Newton, but this fuller card, it was declined due to insufficient funds." Carl's face turned ashen. He knew right away. His grandfather must have cut off the account. He glared at me with fury. "Brooke, do you think this will make me kneel? I will never give in." I raised an eyebrow and said with sarcasm, "Then pay, no one is stopping you." His expression tightened. The truth was, at that moment, he did not have any money. With no other option, he started calling his parents. Unsurprisingly, neither of them answered. His face grew darker with each passing minute as he dialed a few friends, but the moment they heard he was asking to borrow money, they all made excuses and hung up. I knew right then that Mr. Newton had truly lost patience with Carl. Not only had he frozen his accounts, but he had also spread the word around town. No one in Southville wanted to be associated with Carl anymore. I looked at him, completely unbothered. "What is the matter, Mr. Newton? Can you really not afford even this meal? I will tell you what, for the sake of our past, I can let you run a tab, if you ask nicely." Carl's face had turned rigid, his pride wounded beyond repair. He said, "Brooke, you are cruel. You are trying to break me with this pathetic little trick, but I will not bow to you." I smiled and answered, "Then Mr. Newton, go ahead and pay." Carl clenched his fists tightly, his face darkening with visible anger. Just as he was about to explode, Naomi stepped forward and said softly, "Carl, please do not get upset. I will pay." I was slightly surprised. Of all people, she was the one to step in at this moment. Still, I wondered, did she even know how much this meal cost? Carl's face turned red. "Naomi, I am sorry." Naomi gave him a gentle smile and said, "It is all right, we are together now. And I am not one of those women who care about money. It is only fair that we split the bill." Carl's eyes turned red, as if regret was washing over him. Perhaps he was truly starting to wish he had not let her go back then. But I had no interest in watching them play out this romantic drama. The manager soon returned with Naomi's credit card in hand and said politely, "I am sorry, Miss Fuller. Your card has exceeded its limit." Naomi froze for a moment. Then her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "That is not possible. This card has a $5,000 limit, $5,000, and still not enough for a meal." The manager explained calmly, "The food itself was not that expensive, but there was a bottle of imported red wine from France. It is worth $10,000. I looked at Naomi with a smirk. Years ago, when Carl had first pursued her, she had no idea who he really was. Not that any of it mattered now. I paused and said slowly, "So, Miss Fuller, you do not actually have the money." I had assumed. Naomi raised her chin defiantly and pulled out several more Fuller credit cards. "Who said I do not have the money? Swipe them all. One of them will go through." The manager, without hesitation, took the cards and completed the transaction. Carl, meanwhile, looked pained, clearly distressed about the money spent. He shot a glare at me and growled, "Brooke, do you think everyone is like you, chasing after money? I am not letting this go, you just wait." With that, he turned and left with Naomi. My friend leaned in and whispered, "Brooke, is Carl out of his mind? That Naomi clearly found out who he is and is trying to cash in, pretending to be his girlfriend, just to milk the situation." I watched their backs as they left and gave a quiet laugh. "She is a lot more calculating than you think." My friend looked puzzled, but I had no interest in explaining. This time, she is going to be disappointed. Now that the Newton family had changed heirs, who knew how long this so-called true love would last? Despite the interruption, my mood remained unaffected. After finishing my meal, I returned to the office, but just as I stepped inside, I saw Joel rushing in, looking as if he had come straight from the airport. "Brooke, have you really thought this through?" he asked, slightly out of breath. I knew he was referring to the engagement. I smiled and teased, "What if I say I regret it now? Is it too late?" Joel's eyes turned red immediately. Yes, it is too late. I already gave you a chance to choose. No matter what happens now, I will not let anyone else take you from me. I had only been half joking, but his seriousness caught me off guard, and those words, had he liked me for a long time? There was no time to dwell on it. My parents called and suggested we have dinner together with his family to talk things over. The evening went smoothly. My parents seemed even more pleased with him. To be honest, when I had asked to change the engagement before, part of it was out of frustration. But now, looking at Joel, gentle, considerate, and handsome, I began to feel that this marriage might not be such a bad idea after all. In fact, I was starting to look forward to it. The next day, I had an appointment to take my wedding photos, but just my luck. Carl and Naomi showed up at the same studio. Carl's face immediately twisted into a scowl. With clear disgust in his voice, he snapped, "Brooke, do you ever stop? Are you seriously stalking me now?" His pride had been shattered by what happened the day before, and now that he saw me again, he seemed determined to humiliate me. I looked at him coldly. There was no longer even a trace of the affection I once felt. In its place was only deep revulsion. I had never imagined that someone I loved so much could stop loving me so suddenly, as if all those years meant nothing. "Carl," I said calmly, "unless I am mistaken, this studio does not belong to you. If you can be here, why can't I?" Carl narrowed his eyes. "This is a wedding photography studio. What are you doing here alone?" In his mind, I could only be here out of jealousy. "I already told you everything," he said with an edge in his voice. "Naomi and I are just pretending for 3 days. After that, I will marry you. Taking wedding photos with her is just a symbolic farewell. Why do you have to make this difficult?" I kept my tone steady. "Carl, take your photos, I will take mine. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." Carl frowned. "What are you talking about? Who are you taking wedding photos with?" Seeing that I was alone, he clearly did not believe me. Naomi smirked and chimed in. "Brooke, it takes 2 people to take wedding photos. You are here all by yourself." She paused dramatically. "Do people take wedding photos alone now?" She was clearly mocking me. But just then, a calm male voice interrupted her. "Who said she is here alone?" Before I could even turn, Joel had already walked in from the entrance. He approached me with a gentle smile and said, "Sorry I made you wait." I smiled back at him. "It's all right, I just got here too." Carl's eyes widened in disbelief. "Uncle Joel, you are back." He glanced between us, clearly confused. You too." Joel looked him square in the eye and replied, "Brooke and I are here to take our wedding photos." Naomi's eyes flickered with envy as she took in Joel's tall, composed figure and dignified presence. Carl, however, looked at me with contempt. "This is ridiculous. Just to make me break up with Naomi, you brought my uncle into your game. Do you really think this little act will change my mind? Keep dreaming." His arrogance made me laugh. "Carl, do you really think that highly of yourself? What makes you so sure that I cannot move on?" Carl scoffed. "Brooke, the whole world knows you have been obsessed with me. You have chased me since we were kids. When you were 16, you said you would marry no one else. You really expect me to believe you are over me?" Before I could reply, Joel stepped forward and struck Carl across the face with a loud slap. Carl stumbled back, clutching his cheek. How dare you hit me?" Joel replied calmly. "Brooke is going to be your aunt. If you show no respect to your elders, of course I will discipline you." Carl's face burned with both pain and fury. He turned his anger on me. "Brooke, you have gone too far. What did you say to my uncle to get him to go along with this nonsense?" Joel struck him again, this time with the back of his hand. "No manners at all. I already told you. Show respect. From now on, call her Aunt Brooke." Carl stood stunned, unable to process what was happening. "Uncle Joel, how could you be part of this?" Naomi sensed the tension and quickly pulled on Carl's sleeve. "Carl, let's just go. There are other studios. We do not have to stay here." But Carl was still seething. "Naomi, we were here first. Why should we be the ones to leave? That would be unfair to you." Naomi suddenly winced and pressed a hand to her stomach. Her face turned pale. "Carl, I am not feeling well. Let's just go to the hospital first." Carl's expression changed immediately. "Do not worry, Naomi. I will take you there now." But before leaving, he turned back and gave me one last angry glare. "Brooke, I will not let this go. You will regret this." Joel tried to step forward to stop them, but I gently held him back and said, "Let it go. Naomi truly does not look well. If we block their way and something serious happens, it is just not worth it." He glanced down at the trail of blood on the ground. And the truth seemed to dawn on him. Still, he looked at me and asked quietly, "Have you really let it all go?" I looked at the man standing before me. The same man who had just stood up for me without hesitation. A moment ago, he had been confident and composed. Now he looked as if he had been wronged, even a little bitter. I could not help but smile. I said softly, "Do not worry, I take my feelings seriously, and I will take my commitment to you seriously too." Joel frowned slightly. "But you changed your mind just 2 days before the wedding." I pressed a hand to my temple, trying not to laugh at his sulky expression. "Then how about this? Let us skip the photo shoot and just head straight to City Hall." Joel's eyes lit up. "Perfect, we can take wedding photos after we get the marriage certificate." He might not say it, but I could tell. Anyone he would not hurt himself. He would never let others hurt either. On the way to the marriage bureau, Joel quietly sent a message to his assistant. Just as we were filling out the paperwork, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it. It was a message from Carl. "Brooke, let us postpone the wedding again. But do not worry, I promise I will still marry you." Joel noticed my hesitation with the pen and asked, his tone suddenly nervous, "What is wrong?" I looked at him, his face tense with anticipation, almost as if he feared I might back out. Then I thought about Carl's message again, and to my surprise, I felt nothing, not a single ripple in my heart. A person who truly loves you does not make excuses. Love is love. And if someone does not love you, they will always find a way to walk away. I smiled and said, "It is nothing." Then I picked up the pen and completed the form. Only after we held that little red booklet in our hands did I see the tension finally leave Joel's face. On the day of our wedding, I thought everything would go smoothly, but just as Joel came to pick me up, Carl showed up too. Seeing us together, Carl's eyes turned red with fury. "Brooke," he shouted, "I told you we were just postponing the wedding. Why would you go behind my back like this?" I frowned slightly. Even now, he still believed I would wait for him. I looked him in the eyes and replied coldly, "Carl, yes, I am getting married today, but it has absolutely nothing to do with you." He took a step closer and snapped, "If you are not marrying me, who else would you marry? You love me so much. This is all just to pressure me, right?" With a bitter expression, he said, "Fine, you win. I am here. I will marry you. Just tell my uncle to leave." I could not help but laugh. I met his eyes and said, "Carl, this time, asking Joel to walk away is not going to work." Carl looked confused. But before he could respond, Joel stepped forward and kicked him squarely in the chest. "That is enough, Carl," he said firmly. "Hey, now, Joel, take it easy," said one of the older Newton brothers who had just arrived. "He is your nephew. After all, go easy on him." At that moment, Carl's parents arrived and rushed to his side. Seeing him lying on the ground, his mother quickly stepped in to stop the commotion. "Mom," Carl cried indignantly, "he is my uncle, and he came to steal my bride. You need to speak to Grandpa and get him shipped back overseas." Mrs. Newton looked embarrassed. "Carl, apologize to your uncle, right now." Carl looked shocked. "What? Why should I apologize? He is the one who took my fiancé. He should be the one saying sorry." His mother's voice was sharper now. "Stop it. Your grandfather already cancelled your engagement with the Tate family. Today is Joel and Brooke's wedding." "No." Carl could not believe it. His voice cracked. "Mom, you are my mother. How could you join them in lying to me?" He simply could not accept that it was over between us. Joel pulled out our marriage certificate and held it up for all to see. "This is our marriage license. Brooke is now my wife. If you try to interfere again, do not blame me for forgetting we are family." And truth be told, if it were not for the fact that this was our wedding day, and bad luck to spill blood, Joel might have dealt with Carl more harshly himself. Carl stood frozen, completely stunned, his eyes locked on the bright red booklet in his hand, the words on the cover staring back at him. It felt as though a bolt of lightning had struck him square in the chest. No, this could not be real. He had only postponed the wedding by 1 day, just 1 day. How could Brooke have married someone else already? It was not until he brought Naomi to the new house to experience the atmosphere of what would have been their wedding home that he discovered the house had been sold. That was when it finally hit him. Brooke was truly angry. He had returned just as he said he would, so why had she gone and married someone else? Joel's voice cut through the confusion as he gently said, "Let's go." Then he swept me into his arms and carried me toward the car waiting at the door. The wedding had gone off without a hitch. At first, I thought that after the ceremony I would be moving into the Newton estate with Joel, but to my surprise, he had already arranged for us to live in a private villa. When I stepped inside, I was taken aback. Every detail of the interior reflected my personal taste, the colors, the furniture, even the way the rooms were arranged. It was as if someone had studied my preferences in depth. I could not help but ask, "But Joel, you only just got back to the country. How did you know I would like all this? And this place, it could not have been set up in just a few days." Joel smiled, his voice calm and sure. "That is because I have liked you for a very long time. I only left for overseas when you chose Carl instead. That was when you turned 18. I gave him a teasing look. "This villa does not look like something you planned 8 years ago, feels more like something from the past couple of years." He chuckled softly, and my curiosity deepened. The idea that someone had been quietly preparing for me all this time made my heart flutter. He went on, "Back then, I thought that as long as you were happy, that was enough. But about a year ago, I saw Carl meeting Naomi overseas. That is when I knew things had not changed. It dawned on me then. Carl had never let Naomi go. All these years, they had been seeing each other behind my back." I asked, "So you had everything prepared in advance? Just waiting for the right moment to stop the wedding?" Then I looked up at him with a spark of amusement. "But what if I had not called off the engagement?" Joel pulled me gently onto his lap and said with quiet certainty, "You would have. I knew you would." I did not fully understand what gave him such confidence. But before I could ask, Joel's phone buzzed. It was a call from Mr. Newton. He wanted both of us to come over immediately. Joel was clearly reluctant. Our wedding night had just begun. But when Mr. Newton called, we had no choice but to listen. Soon after, we arrived at the Newton family home. Carl was kneeling on the floor. Mr. Newton was furious. He kicked Carl hard and shouted, "You fool, you nearly ruined everything. What are you going to do now?" Mrs. Newton sighed and said, "Well, she is pregnant. Maybe we should just let her marry into the family." She did not look pleased either, but what else could she say? I glanced at Joel, and in that moment, it all made sense. Naomi was pregnant. No wonder Joel had told me there was no way I could marry Carl, that truth or dare game had been nothing more than a cover-up, a lie. If this had happened just a few weeks ago, I might have been devastated. But now, I just felt thankful that I had gotten out before it was too late. I thought this would be the end of it, that things would be settled at last. But then Carl, still kneeling, looked up and said firmly, "Grandfather, I will not marry her." The entire Newton family fell silent. Carl's eyes shifted to me. "The woman I want to marry is already someone else's wife. I will never marry again." That kind of love, offered too late, was not romantic, it was pitiful, and it was utterly, hopelessly foolish. Joel naturally understood the hidden meaning behind the old man's words. Without thinking, he gently tightened his grip on my hand. I could only sigh inwardly. But since we were already married, I chose not to overthink it. I looked toward the old man and said softly, "Dad, Joel and I have made a decision. We are planning to go abroad." Joel looked at me with surprise, his eyes wide. I gave his hand a reassuring squeeze and continued, "There are still overseas projects that have not been completed." Joel came back in a rush, and he cannot stay too long. Now that we are married, I should go with him. That is only right. My words made my position perfectly clear. Joel was visibly moved. Carl, on the other hand, looked utterly defeated, as if all the light had left his world. Mr. Newton, however, nodded with satisfaction. He said gently, "Good, good. As long as you and Joel can live peacefully together, I will be at ease." After we returned home, Joel immediately booked the earliest flight available. I knew he was afraid that staying longer might cause more trouble. And all he wanted was to leave this place as soon as possible. Before leaving, I thought it was only right to say goodbye to my parents. They had no objections. only reminded me to take care of myself and to live a happy life. What I did not expect was to run into Naomi on my way back to the Newton estate. She was standing right at the gate, as if waiting for someone. When she saw me approaching, a bitter smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. She said quietly, "Brooke, you won." I frowned slightly and replied, "Naomi, I was never competing with you." She looked at me, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and frustration. "Do you know what is so infuriating about you? It is that calm, indifferent attitude of yours. You always act like nothing matters. And yet you get everything that others could never have in a lifetime." I watched her struggle to keep her emotions in check and could not help but let out a cold laugh. "Then you can only blame your fate. Even if I had stepped aside, even if Carl and I were no longer engaged, you still would not have had him. That only proves you were born unlucky. Some things are simply not meant for you." Naomi's face went pale, but I did not spare her another glance. I turned and walked toward the house without hesitation. I knew the truth behind our engagement. Naomi had left the country back then. Unaware of Carl's true identity, when she realized that life abroad was not what she had imagined, she regretted it and found her way back to Carl. Once she discovered who he really was, she clung to him even harder. She even went so far as to get pregnant, hoping that would be enough to bind him to her. But nothing went according to her plan. She had imagined a future by his side. But what she never expected was that Carl, in the end, would still refuse to marry her. I never fully understood Carl, and frankly, I no longer wished to. What was in the past should stay in the past. Life only moves forward. When I stepped into the house, I noticed Carl standing inside. It was clear he had heard my exchange with Naomi. I did not say a word. I simply walked around him and went upstairs. Soon after, I heard voices coming from behind me. Carl said, "Naomi, my heart is already gone. I will take responsibility for the child, but I cannot marry you." Naomi's voice cracked as she asked, "Why? Brooke is married now. You missed your chance with her." Carl's voice was low, almost broken. "But I regret it, I really do." The next morning, before the sun had even risen, Joel and I were already on our way to the airport. He worried that I might be hungry, so he went off to get me some breakfast while I waited in the lounge. Sitting there, my eyes wandered to a notebook resting on the seat beside me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Flipping through the pages, I saw the neat handwriting and, all at once, a vivid memory surfaced in my mind. I could almost hear someone saying, "Brooke, someone from the Newton family left more notes for you, and a bottle of milk, too." I remembered that summer when I was 16. There had been a terrible car accident, and I fractured my right leg. I was stuck at home and could not go to school for weeks, but every morning, without fail, someone would quietly leave a stack of class notes outside my window. Alongside them, always, was a paper crane. At the time, Carl was 2 grades above me at the same school. I assumed it had been him all along, but I had been completely wrong. Just then, Joel returned. "Brooke, have you been waiting long?" he asked gently. I looked up at him standing there, sunlight just beginning to spill through the glass. The stars were fading from the sky, and the early light glowed on his face. In that moment, I felt something deep inside me melt. The ice that had weighed on my heart for so long turned into a quiet river, flowing freely at last. It was like hearing the sound of my own teenage heartbeat again, racing, uncertain, full of life. I stood up, then ran to him without thinking and threw my arms around him. "I should be the one asking that," I said softly. "Have I kept you waiting too long?" Half a year passed. I found out I was pregnant. My mother called to check on me and, as usual, could not help but mention some news about Carl and Naomi. "Old Mr. Newton finally cut Carl off," she said with a sigh. "That Naomi girl just could not handle living without money. She fights with him all the time now." She paused, then continued, "But even so, they stayed together because of the baby. The child was born a few days ago, and guess what? They did a paternity test. Turns out, it is not Carl's." I could almost picture it. The rage on Carl's face. He went completely mad. My mother said, "Nearly strangled Naomi." He shouted at her, said, "Do you know what you have done? I gave up the one person I truly loved because of you. If it were not for the hospital staff pulling them apart," she went on, "they might not have made it out alive. Naomi is crippled now. And Carl, well, Mr. Newton sent him overseas. As I listened, I could not quite describe how I felt. It was not joy, but it was not sorrow either, just a quiet stillness in my heart. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. The day I flew home, Joel took care of everything. He carried our luggage and made sure I had everything I needed. At the airport, just as we were walking out, I had the strange feeling that someone was watching me. I glanced around, scanning the crowds, but saw nothing unusual. Joel noticed the look on my face. "Is everything all right?" he asked. I smiled at him, sweet and light. "It is nothing," I said, shaking my head. "Come on. My parents must be waiting." What I did not know was that, as I walked out of the terminal, Carl stepped out of the shadows behind me. He watched my back as I disappeared into the crowd, eyes fixed and unblinking. Only when I was completely out of sight did he turn away and board a plane to a faraway country. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.